In the village of Nimkheda, an unnatural silence falls as the electrical grid is swallowed by the sunset. The darkness is intentional. Every evening, the residents pull their own master switches, retreating behind locked doors to hide from a dread that seems to haunt the substation. Samir is the face of the city's logic. He's a young engineer arriving with a toolkit and a mandate to fix what he assumes are simple mechanical failures or local laziness. Ramu Kaka and the other elders warn him to stay away from the path to the old powerhouse. They tell stories of a well and a substation where the wind stops and shadows move of their own accord. Samir dismisses these warnings as rural superstition. To him, the villagers are simply people who have grown comfortable living in the dark rather than doing the work to modernize their grid. This is the blind spot of institutional logic. By treating local fear as a technical error to be corrected, the system often ignores the lived history and specific warnings of the people it is meant to serve. In the silence of the village's self-imposed blackout, Samir sits in his quarters. The harsh wind aggressively rattles the old window panes, and he hears the unmistakable sound of wet, barefoot footsteps pacing his porch. 3 slow knocks draw him to the door. Standing there is Somesh, a pale young man with a voice like a dry whisper, looking for someone to follow him into the storm. Somesh's mother is dying of a fever in a house across the fields. He tells Samir that everyone else in the village has bolted their doors against him, ignoring his cries for help. Samir looks out at the oppressive dark. He remembers the elders' warnings, but his professional training and his basic human empathy push him to grab his medical kit and follow the boy. In a world governed by ghosts, Samir's inherent goodness, his sense of duty to help, becomes the very hook that lures him into a trap. As they walk toward the substation, the trees seem to lean in, their branches clawing at the air, as if trying to bar the way. Samir's heady boots crunch loudly in the mud, but Somesh moves in a terrifying, total silence. His feet leave no prints, and his steps make no sound gliding through the woods. They reach a house thick with the stench of decay. Right outside, a rusted electric pole lies snapped on the ground, its wires trailing into the dirt like dead veins. The rotting structure stands as a physical manifestation of a community that has been systematically abandoned and forgotten by the world outside. Inside, Samir finds a woman on a wooden cot. She isn't sick, she is a skeletal corpse, her skin stretched tight over bone, her eyes staring at him with a dry, yellowed intensity. Samir turns to find that Somesh has vanished. All that remains is a dark shadow projected on the wall, an impossible and terrifying silhouette that defies all natural logic. This diagram represents a tragedy from 2 years ago. The fallen pole trapped Somesh and his mother in a lethal current. The neighbors watched the flashes and heard the screams, but kept their doors shut, choosing to let them die. The haunting is the weight of that collective silence. These spirits are born from a moment of profound indifference, when an entire village decided that their neighbors' lives weren't worth the intervention. The entities demand a sacrifice. To restore the village's light and grant the mother peace, they need a representative of the system that failed them to touch the wire and absorb the debt. Samir argues that he is innocent, that he only came to help. He tells the boy that murdering a stranger only repeats the cruelty of the neighbors who watched them die. Somesh counters that in a broken system, silence is a crime. He tells Samir that there are no innocents when everyone participates in the neglect. Blue electricity floods the room, revealing the terrifying ghosts. Samir throws himself through the door, sprinting blindly into the mud and the dark maze of the trees. He reaches the village well, the door of Yama. He is trapped as viscous, black smoke boils over the stone rim, cutting off his only path back to the village. Neglect creates monsters. When a society ignores the suffering of its own people, that trauma festers until it demands a violent reckoning from the very system